Fresh aftershocks have hit parts of Myanmar more than 2 days after the devastating earthquake, which has already claimed more than 1,700 lives. More global aid and support is arriving in the country, but the United Nations has warned that a severe lack of medical equipment is hindering the emergency response. The country's ongoing civil war is also having an effect, with Myanmar's ruling junta accused of carrying out airstrikes after the quake.
Already on edge amid unstable wreckage, rescue workers feel an aftershock. No harm this time. Still, emergency responders know more tremors are likely after Friday's massive earthquake. But sometimes this happens.
Hello.
Their laborious work pays off. Myanmar and Singaporean rescuers pulled this man from the rubble after an entire day's work.
It took us 24 hours for this operation to save this man. He had been stuck under the wreckage for about 40 hours.
Myanmar is seeing more rescue teams arrive by the hour, with much-needed sniffer dogs and equipment in a country heavily impacted by civil war. Much of the affected areas aren't under the control of the country's military rulers. Since the quake, government forces are accused of carrying out airstrikes in the north. In the Sagaing region, they're accused of blocking access to aid.
So the revolutionary groups, they wanted to go and help out to the civilians, but they cannot go.
Myanmar's main rebel movement, the National Unity Government, has announced a unilateral partial ceasefire to allow relief efforts. But even with a potential ease in the fighting, many residents are at a loss. Where to start when the heavy machinery that could help lift and dig through the wreckage is hours, days, maybe weeks or months away? Predictive models from the US Geological Survey estimate Myanmar's death toll could reach 10,000, but the rescue efforts continue, occasional successes driving them forward.
And we can now speak to Hetet Tiha Saw. He's a postdoctoral fellow at the School of Public Policy and Global Affairs at the University of British Columbia. Welcome to DW. This earthquake hit a country that, as you know, was already struggling after years of conflict. What kind of an impact do you think this will have on the people, this natural disaster right now?
Thank you, Marianne. So, as you have mentioned, the area impacted most by the earthquake, Sagaing and Mandalay region, are also the areas that has seen most intense conflict over the past 4 years. So this disaster is on top of the destruction and loss of life that we've seen for the past 4 years. And the military's call for international aid is a bit of a departure from its actions during earlier major disasters, such as the Cyclone Nargis in 2008. And it is welcome to see the assistance from European Union and also aid convoys from India, China, Singapore, and Russia. But the challenges remain to address the people trapped in it, and then also the economic loss that we've seen because of the major destruction in infrastructure that we've seen. 2 of the 3 major airports has been damaged by the earthquake, Mandalay and Naypitaw Airport. And as earlier mentioned, certain groups such as the National Unity Government has called for a partial ceasefire, but we have seen reports of airstrikes and continued fighting in certain regions. So right now, the necessity is, of course, that the continuation of the ceasefire and enforcement of the ceasefire. But without that, the destruction and loss of life that we've seen will continue and will worsen the region that has already been significantly impacted by conflict and destruction for the past 4 years.
Well, as you mentioned, it was really a departure on the part of the junta to actually ask for international assistance to cope with this enormous devastation. But could this somehow help move Myanmar out of international isolation? Could there be some sort of shift in the attitude of the ruling junta?
Sure. So while this is a welcoming gesture, the main roots and main sources of international isolation remain. That is the continuation of the military coup and continued fighting between the military and other major actors in the conflict, such as the National Unity Government and key ethnic organizations. And that the state of emergency has been extended for 7 times and is set to expire on August 1st, 2025. But yet we do not see any signs of the election. We ought to continue. And also the other aspect is that there has not been any major developments in sustained ceasefire between these major groups. So in order for isolation to stop, there needs to be the enforcement of the ceasefire and also the negotiation between the military and also the armed groups and major groups such as the National Unity Government. But without that, we will not see, aside from the aid, which is of course a positive development, it remains to be seen the major changes in the international isolation that the country faces today.
Well, could the junta possibly even use this disaster to increase its grip on power, taking advantage of it?
Yeah, there's potential for the military to increase its grip of power in places that are already under its control, such as parts of the major city, Mandalay, which is probably the place most impacted by the earthquake, with severe loss of life, mostly coming from this area, and also control over the other major cities such as Naypitaw and Yangon. But it remains to be seen how it will increase its grip of power in places that are under civilian resistant group control or ethnic groups control, because these groups are also trying to increase this performance legitimacy in areas that are under its control, and usually actively involving in search and rescue operations in the Sakine region and so on. So yeah, it might be limited in places that are not under its control.
That was Hetet Tia Saw from the University of British Columbia. Many thanks indeed for all of your insights today.
Thank you very much.
Michael Dunford is the World Food Program Country Director in Myanmar. Here's how he experienced the earthquake and how his team is coping with the many challenges ahead.
To be honest, it was terrifying. We were in a meeting, we were just wrapping up. We'd actually been discussing how WFP was going to manage the reduction in funding, the scaling down of our operations, and what that would also mean for the size of the team. With that, the earthquake hit, and the next thing I knew, I was under the table with a couple of colleagues, hoping, wishing for it to finish.
The UN has said that around 20 million people in Myanmar were in need of humanitarian assistance even before the earthquake. We can only imagine how the earthquake has exacerbated things, but paint a clear picture for us. What specific problems are now worse?
So as you say, before the earthquake, the situation was already highly complicated. Communications has been historically bad in Myanmar. There was a lack of humanitarian access. We've now seen the road system, the infrastructure severely damaged. You've seen the images, of course, from Mandalay and elsewhere, where there's huge catastrophic damage, buildings down. I've just come from a hospital where we have started our first distributions. There are still people doing search and rescue, trying to save people who may have been trapped over 48 hours ago.
More sobering facts from the UN. The organization is warning about a shortage of medical equipment. Does that worry you? And how confident are you that such supplies will reach the hardest hit areas?
There's a need across all sectors at the moment, be it food, health, water and sanitation, and of course shelter. It'll be important that we are able to bring these commodities in quickly, and then importantly, distribute them to the people most in need. If we can't do that, then we're not going to be able to have the impact that we would want, and it means that the population will suffer.
Michael, countries around the world, of course, have already begun sending rescue teams and aid shipments. But the Red Cross is apparently appealing for more than $100 million to help, particularly because people are also facing the rapidly approaching monsoon season. What's your take? How much more help is needed from the international community?
So we were already needing, as WFP, $60 million just to meet our regular humanitarian needs between now and the end of the year. We've been hit by this earthquake. Those needs have increased. I have no doubt that $100 million and beyond will be required if we're going to adequately address all of the needs across the country, given the severity of the situation before and now the complexity subsequent to the earthquake itself.
I imagine each day brings new challenges along with the old. What difficulties are you and your colleagues facing while working on the ground today?
Well, for the last couple of days, there have been ongoing tremors. Many of my staff have lost their homes. Some are living or sleeping out on the streets. They're fearful of going back into their homes at the moment. Beyond that, it's access to water and food for our own staff. But it's not about us. It's really about the population that's been hit. Communications has been problematic. We're trying to establish regular comms to the remote locations. And then, as I mentioned, the road network has been severely impacted, and moving commodities from Yangon to Naypitaw are already taking twice as long as they used to previously.
Michael Dunford is the World Food Program Country Director in Myanmar, and we give him our thanks.
Thank you.